Okay, so today we're diving into something that I think a lot of people experience but don't always talk about,
Yeah.
and that's loneliness.
Yeah.
And so we're going to call this deep dive. The science of loneliness, why
Right.
we feel it, and what it teaches us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I was reading this article, and it was just really fascinating. And so I wanted to like kind of unpack it with you and just kind of go through it
Yeah.
because it really made me think about some stuff.
Well said.
Have you had a chance to look at this?
I have. Yeah. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I guess the first thing that really jumped out at me was this idea that like loneliness isn't just, a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like an actual biological signal,
Yeah.
like hunger or thirst.
Right.
It's telling us something's off.
It's pushing us towards something we need. Like you said, like hunger pushes us to eat.
Yeah.
This is pushing us towards connection.
And like on a really deep level, like we need it to survive. I mean, I never really thought about it that way before.
Yeah. It really highlights the importance of social connection and how deeply ingrained it is in our biology.
Yeah.
Going way back to our evolutionary past, being part of a group was crucial for survival.
Right.
Think about it, strength in numbers. You're more likely to find food, more protection from predators.
Right. Safety in numbers.
Exactly. So those who are isolated, well, they were less likely to survive and pass on their genes.
It makes you wonder, like, how much of that is still with us today, in this modern world?
Well, that's the fascinating thing. It seems like a lot of those instincts are still very much active in our brains.
Huh.
Even though the threats might look a little different now, our brains still react in a similar way when we're isolated.
So, like, even if we're not, worried about being attacked by a wild animal, our brains still interpret loneliness as a threat.
Pretty much. It triggers that same fight or flight response.
Wow. That explains why sometimes, like, when I'm feeling really lonely, it almost feels physically painful.
Exactly.
It's like this ache you get.
And there's a reason for that. That feeling of loneliness actually activates the same area of the brain that processes physical pain.
No way.
Yeah. It's called the anterior cingulate cortex. So basically your brain is saying, hey, this hurts. We need to do something about this.
It's like sending out a distress signal.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, right? You don't have to be physically alone to feel lonely.
Right.
I mean, think about like being at a party, surrounded by people,
Yeah.
but you still feel totally invisible.
Absolutely. That's a really important point.
Or like scrolling through social media and just feeling worse afterward.
It's not just about the quantity of people around us. It's about the quality of our connections.
It's about feeling truly seen and understood.
Exactly. Having those deep, meaningful relationships where you feel like you can truly be yourself.
Yeah.
If those are missing, that feeling of loneliness can linger even if you're constantly surrounded by people.
So it really is about more than just, how many people are in your life. It's about the depth of those connections.
Right. It's like you can have hundreds of acquaintances, but if you don't have a few people you can truly confide in, that loneliness can still creep in.
And I guess that's when it becomes a problem, right? When it
Yeah.
becomes chronic.
Exactly.
I mean, what happens when that feeling just doesn't go away?
Well, chronic loneliness is basically like having a stress response that never turns off.
Oh, wow.
And over time, that can have some serious consequences for our mental and physical health.
I bet.
For one thing, it can really affect our cognitive function, so things like focus, memory, decision-making, all those things can become more difficult.
It's kind of like running on fumes.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Chronic loneliness is also linked to a higher risk of things like anxiety and depression, even heart disease.
Wow, that's scary. It really puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It highlights just how important it is to prioritize our social connections.
So basically what we're learning here is that loneliness is way more than just a fleeting feeling.
Right.
It's this powerful biological signal.
Yeah.
And it's telling us that we need connection. We need it to thrive.
And the good news is that understanding the science behind loneliness is a really important first step.
Right, because then you can actually start to do something about it.
Exactly. In part 2, we'll delve into some of the ways we can start to build those stronger, more fulfilling connections.
I can't wait for that. Okay, so listeners, until next time, here's something to think about. What makes a relationship truly meaningful for you?
Yeah.
And what are some things that you can do, even small steps, to nurture those connections in your life?
Great question.
Something to really think about.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. A 1623.